Who is John Gotti?
Who was John Gotti Jr.? John A. Gotti Jr., born February 14, 1964 in Queens, New York. He may not have been seen his father much when he was a kid, but when he did, he certainly left an impression. When Gotti was just 5, by which point Dad had already been in trouble with the law many times. His father became a 3-year prison sentence in Pennsylvania after pleading guilty to cargo hijacking charges. It got to the point that Gotti's friends didn't even believe he had a father. One day in 1972, a car pulled up as Gotti remembered. Almost on cue, this brown Lincoln Continental Mark IV with smoke windows comes rolling down the streets and stops right by me. Then the windows roll down. Where's the house? Because he didn't know where we lived. So I say, the second house with the corner with the green awning. Dad, I see you over there. It was only 3 years later that Gotti's father was back in prison for a 2-year term attempted to manslaughter charges. And 2. Gotti loved his father despite these absences. He always knew that his father put the mob lifestyle ahead of everything else. There's nothing he didn't like about his life. My father lived that life 24/7, Gotti later said. In fact, his wife and kids were second to the streets. He loved it. He loved the code. He loved the action. On May 18, 1980, when Gotti was 16, a neighbor accidentally ran over his younger brother, 12-year-old Frankie, while the boy was riding his bike outside the house. Gotti's father never showed much emotion about the tragedy in public, but the things were different behind closed doors. In my bedroom, the vent was attached to his den, and I would hear him cry. My mother was heartbroken. She was upstairs on tranquilizers. And as for John Favaro, the neighbor who accidentally killed Frankie, he disappeared after being abducted by several men 4 months later. Gotti later acknowledged that his father was probably involved in that disappearance. Whenever innocent John A. Gotti may have still had about his father's life surely vanished after that point. Now, the infamous John Gotti's son was on the verge of becoming a man himself, and for him that meant joining the family business. In 1985, 5 years after Frankie Gotti's death, John Gotti became a boss of the Gambino crime family upon executing a plan to kill current boss Paul Castellano, which his father power now cemented. John Gotti Jr. became a rising star in the New York underworld. Authorities believe that Gotti became an official member of the Gambino family in 1980 and became the youngest couple in the family history, just 2 years later when he was still in his mid-20s. He had already been learning the ropes in the various rackets, including gambling and loan sharking, since 1982, but now he was a mob leader himself. As Gotti later said in his induction into the Gambino family and his father's reaction to it. When my father embraced me, put his arm around me and looked at me as a street guy, as a knock-around guy, like himself. Proudest moment of my life, because I was slowly becoming like him. But not long after John Gotti's son was inducted into the mob, the elder Gotti's life on the street ended. Gotti Sr. at the end of the day, you gotta die or go to jail. And that's precisely that happened to John Gotti Sr. when he was convicted of racketeering and murder charges in 1992. Thanks to the turncoat to testimony of mob killer Sammy the Bull Carvano and sentenced to life in prison. According to authorities, John Gotti Jr. began acting as the Gambino head of operation after his father went to prison, and actually a family member. Gotti was allowed to visit his father in prison and relay his messages and the ordered in criminal associates on the outside business throughout the 1990s, until the law caught up with him too. In 1998, federal authorities charged him with a broad range of crimes including loan sharking, bookmaking and extortion. Faced with the mountain of evidence, Gotti accepted a plea deal to serve just even 7 years in prison. Just before doing so, he met with his father who tried to convince him to fight the charges and remain a proud member of the mob. It was the last time the two would ever see each other. The elder Gotti died of throat cancer not long after on June 10, 2002. Despite his father's wishes, John A. Gotti accepted the plea deal and began a decade-long process of extricating himself from the mob life he'd been born into. During that final conversation, John A. Gotti's father did try to convince him to fight the charges, but ultimately relented. John, if this is what you want, do. You are an old man, he said. But then we'll never leave you alone. The government will never accept it. You think they're going to stop it if you plead guilty? They just bring another case and another case. That previously what happened, even after he served time for the plea deal. Getting out in early 2002, authorities indicted him repeatedly for old crimes, ranging from drug trafficking, racketeering and murder. However, prosecutors were never able to secure a conviction. Gotti spent most of the 2000 fighting legal battles, and he beat the charges each time. Finally, in 2009, the latest in a string of mistrials related to Gotti's racketeering charges, convinced authorities to give up the fight and let the man walk free. From that point on, John Jr. Gotti has said that he only wanted to be a dad for his 6 kids and his husband to his wife, Victoria.